What's up, my basic family? I'm back again with another episode of Christian Campfire Conversations podcast. And if you didn't miss the first part, this is the second part to the series on the most important video I've ever made to date. This is talking about abolitionism with Clifton Boji. And you guys should be excited. I got some more episodes coming out specifically about this topic, which is the most important topic of our age, addressing the Holocaust going on in our nation today. And so if you haven't watched the first part of the episode, then go back and watch it on my page. It's called The Most Important Video to Date. And then if you have, then roll the intro music.
Most evangelical Christians have a pretty toxic relationship with God.
If your form of Christianity doesn't include mysticism, maybe you should change that, because
I don't know why you're clapping. I'm talking about you.
Jesus didn't die for our sins. Jesus died because of them.
What's wrong with you people?
Figure it out, like, well, maybe we could try this. I know God said that, but this might work. Well, now we're playing God. Now we're being proud, and he says he opposes the proud, and he also says the proud are an abomination to him. Proud in heart.
Yeah.
So there's, if you want to chime in or
No, I mean,
rein it
that's,
in, or,
yeah. I mean,
is there
I'm just
something
trying to think of like,
is something in particular you could.
I mean, there was just like, thinking about, Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount, thinking about, Jesus obviously in the context talking about sexual sin, Matthew 5, but he says, if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away, gouge out your eye, throw it away. And so that kind of thinking about more about, bills and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But I mean, what you were talking about was kind of specifically of like what Christians should do in terms of biblically of like, we should be out there, on the front lines at Planned Parenthood, pleading with mothers, to not commit this murder, to not commit sin, to not kill their child, standing up for the voiceless, standing up for the fatherless,
Yes.
Doing those things, using the gospel, and then also thinking about bills, thinking about, and then we can also just kind of move in. Let's just move into pro-life incrementalism and abolitionism.
I didn't know if you want an application. I was trying to keep it trying to keep it to principle. That when you get to the application, it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So let's just, so for a lot of my listeners, a lot of my followers are from back home where I grew up in Southwest Kansas. And I mean, the way I grew up, it was just like, oh, like I'm pro-life. All the other Christians around me are pro-life. And then we hear about this abolitionism. It's like, well, yeah, like I'm an abolitionist, but I'm going to vote for, I'm going to vote no on some amendment that says, or I'm going to vote yes to say like, we should stop killing babies, before, or after 20 weeks or whatever it is. It's like, why is like, what's the difference there? And is one more biblical, or is one more God's way than the other, and that kind of stuff?
Sure. Yeah. Now you're getting into this is the soft spots, the tender spots, right? Discuss. So if you keep, I think this will be at least the third time I'm saying it, because I just hammer on it and stay on it because it really makes you think, is that if you're talking about a bill, what we tend to do is fixate on the result at the end that we think we're going to get. And then that becomes a justification for however we get there within reason, right? Because people aren't going to do like what I said earlier about sniping off the abortionists and strapping women to chairs while they're pregnant until they give birth and letting them go. People are like, oh, that's stupid. That's not what we're talking about. So granted, I know that people are not saying anything because people aren't doing everything. They're not blowing up Planned Parenthoods left and right and getting rid of the buildings. And then no one's doing that. So that said, is that if whatever you're doing, and so bill specific, what is the mechanism of the bill? And I think the shining example that we would put out that would explain the principle, I think most clearly, is that not even talking about the weeks, like how many weeks and up to what, but let's just go straight to what is the biggest thing we're trying to attack, crush, dispel, expose. If a bill says mommy is immune to prosecution, whatever the language is, whatever the thing, but if the mechanism of the bill includes mommy is immune, then what are you saying? You're saying mommy is untouchable when she murders her baby. And we're talking about, according to due process, verifying discerning, did mommy do it? Did somebody put a pill? All that's all under due process. If it ever gets to that point, like when we get to that point, the judges are going to have to figure it out. That's what judges are for. But if your law says mommy cannot be prosecuted, please tell me how we can honestly say that God loves that it's righteous, and that we should do that. And I use that example because I think that gets to the heart of a lot of the discussion with pro-life groups, pro-life leaders, the bills, the stuff, because that's really what's going to have to happen, meaning it has to become murder for everyone, and mommies cannot be immune, or you'll never make it illegal. It'll never be illegal until you do that.
But Clifton, we're saving babies by signing this bill. Like, this bill is going to save thousands of babies from being murdered. It's like,
sure.
why wouldn't I sign this bill?
Sure. So I think it's good to point out that the I'm going to call it the tradition we've been handed down politically is you must choose from the least of the evils. Like, all the evils put before me, because politics is evil, right? I got to pick the least evil thing and influence toward that to get it away from the really, really bad stuff. But then you're having to champion evil. And I know people are going to push back, and I'm talking to people I have on the discussion right now about how to sort through that. And I would like to convince them that that's not a good idea, because the Lord says only do what is righteous insofar as you understand and are able to do, because you know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. And if you say, here, you have to ask this question: is saving babies my ultimate goal, or is glorifying my Creator, the Creator, Yahweh, the ultimate goal? And I will say that if you do things God's way, does not mean no babies will be saved. It will mean you honor the God of the universe, who then, like I mentioned before, will act on our behalf. And then our hands are clean from injustice. So if you fixate on, you could even say, I'm trying to fulfill the second great command, to save these babies. Yet have you considered that Satan is good at using good things to get you to do bad things? Case in point, he said to Jesus, just bow to me and all these kingdoms will be yours. Consider, those kingdoms are already in queue to be Jesus' kingdoms. I give you ask of me and I'll give you the nations. So Jesus was tempted to get it ahead of time, what was already a good thing to give to him. So if we let the devil tempt us with good things that we really want, and God even commands to be, but then use them to justify doing something wicked, then that's the problem. I mean, is that cover it?
No, I think that does cover it. Because I just draw a blank on what I was going to say.
It was so good.
Well, I was thinking about what Russell brought this example to a pro-life incrementalist at one point, Russell Hunter, where he's like, the pro-life and pro-choice people are playing chess, and they're playing chess back and forth, and Satan, or the pro-choice people, are going to allow the pro-lifers they're going to sacrifice their bishops or their rooks to keep their king safe, right? And pro-lifers are playing this political chess with them, and they're compromising, right? And to keep abortion legal, the pro-choice people are willing to pass certain bills to regulate it, right? And abolitionists are really saying, no, we can't be playing chess with Satan. We need to abolish this evil immediately, right? Uncompromisingly, to do it, because that's God's way. And so I think that's kind of a good, clear kind of mental image of thinking about playing chess and sacrificing and compromising, because then this kind of gets into the conversation too of just compromise in general, right? Of any bill. One of the tenets of abolition is we're uncompromising to culture, especially when it comes to evil. And so we are compromising to culture by regulating abortion, by regulating child sacrifice. So maybe we could just talk about compromising and being uncompromised.
Right. So the uncompromising. Yeah. So the chess game. Yeah. There's actually he did an artistic rendering of that thing on the back of one of their booklets called "Are You an Abolitionist?" I think it's on the back, or maybe it's somewhere in the annals of Russell's artwork. But the point of it being is, and that's actually ties, I don't know if you were triggered by what I said a minute ago, but it actually ties right into what I was mentioning about, I'll say, to get the point. I sometimes use the illustration of Satan dangling a baby in front of you. Just do this thing and you'll get to save this baby. So then you're like, oh, I want to save this baby. And then you're tempted to compromise for that. But then I can even use what we see in Kansas for now with the laws, and I'm sure the other guys, if you interview guys from other states, they'll give you a similar story, is that instead of a legislator standing in the podium in the well, wherever he does this, office, colleagues, committees, wherever it is, and saying straightforward, abortion of living children is murder. It should be outlawed because it's supposed to be illegal for everyone to murder anyone. We're not going to play games with this. Someone should be saying that. But people think that if you do that, you halt progress. And that's what we're talking about. But then the trick of it is, it's like, okay, we'll give you these, like this, basically what you said, we'll give you these babies if you give us these babies. You can have the ones that are before 12 weeks, and we get the ones that are after 12 weeks. And I know that nobody's going to talk like that, but what we have to do is show what functionally is happening. Because what I mean, or what I want to happen, or what I feel like, or my view, sure, that's important, but there are objective realities that just are, whatever your feelings are. So when you do that, you are actually saying what I just said. We'll give you these babies, and if you give us these. But remember, we're not going to stop until we get all of them. So we're coming back. Be ready. But then all you have to do is just keep messing around and fiddling around. If you never call it what it is and say, no, we don't regulate murder. We don't regulate that. So the difficulty is that it's hard for them to get the saving babies in its proper spot, if I can say it that way. That element in the proper place.
Yeah, sure.
So did that get at what you were?
No, that answers the question pretty well. And I think that'll be something for the pro-life listeners that listen to my podcast, just to kind of think through, of thinking about, what matters more? Does saving an undefined amount of babies or glorifying God matter most to me?
Yeah,
right.
That's a good point. You said, would you say undefined number?
Yeah.
And actually, like the guarantee, can you guarantee it's going to save the babies if it's these little on the perimeter type bills that kind of they might do something, but yeah. It has to. Let me say this. I'm going to take a risk and say this. I think that this is another of the many situations that I even mentioned a little bit ago already, so I'm repeating it. There are a multitude of ways that we are tested in our discipleship. I'm speaking specifically about Christians right now. Tested in our discipleship. And am I going to love God more than everything and anyone? And am I going to do what he says, no matter what the outcome is that I can perceive or imagine or speculate, because he said so, and because it's a test. And I want to give a brief example from Saul, King Saul. I just read this a few days ago. God said, slay all Agag and all don't spare anything. Don't spare anyone or anything. And Saul thought, I'm going to spare the king, and I'm going to spare the best animals, because I'm going to, maybe this was a covering himself after he got confronted, or maybe he already had his mind. We're going to sacrifice the best animals to God. That might have been his head. That was his answer after he got caught. And he didn't kill the king like he was supposed to. And you think, why didn't he do what God said the first time? Because and then Samuel said, you need to obey. You need to obey. It's not God doesn't care about sacrifice if you're disobedient. Because if you think about it, if he would have just killed all the animals, all the people that God said, yeah, it's very stark, it's very severe, but God's serious about sin. If he would have done that in the moment and not waited till later to have the best animals for sacrifice, he would have sacrificed. He would have made the sacrifice. It's like right there in his obedience. He sacrificed the animals he would have sacrificed the animals when God told him to kill them all. And then he didn't kill the king. So in that case, what happened to Saul? That it was either the final thing or moving toward God taking the kingdom away from Saul. So if we do things not the way God said it, then he may withhold victory. So if we're not doing things his way, it looks like, we can save the babies. But consider if everyone who claims his name did what he says, how he said to do it, we might have gotten rid of legal abortion already, because we don't know what he would have done if we would just do what he says, when he says to do it, how he says to do it. So I think that's where I press on that about
doing what God says is best, right? In any form. So when it comes to Christians that are say, all right, well, yeah, you've convinced me, Clifton. I need to be doing more when it comes to child sacrifice. What should I do, right? What do I need to do?
The very first thing?
Donate to AMKS. No, I'm just kidding.
No. God provides for his work. There's the providential aspect. He will provide. So the first thing is that when Jesus said, when you pray, not if, but when, go in secret. So I would say the first thing is you should start praying intentionally in secret when no one else is around. And the temptation to be seen as spiritual and the temptation to be seen as an activist, or I'm doing the hard stuff. Go in secret with the God of the universe who is your Father. Pray your guts out. That's the first thing. And then the tangible step, a tangible first step would just be tell your church people. Talk to your pastor. Hey, pastor, elders, hey, have you guys heard about this? You know about this? We got to do something. These are our neighbors. Because the first thing is having a heart set that's willing to do what God says about it. Because then after that is established, so now I'm running through these, then you can say, Lord, what should we do? What have you provided for us to do and where we are, where we're at? If we're in like far western Kansas, it's probably unlikely you're going to get to go to the murder mills every time they're open. Highly unlikely. Making a special trip once would be a good idea to get exposed and gripped with what's going on right in front of your face behind those brick walls, but you're probably not going to go there every week. But that doesn't mean you're out of the game or out of the battle. So praying, talk to your leadership, talk to your church folks, prepare for resistance, prepare to persevere, and prepare to even be persecuted, because it's going to happen at some point. So if you want like more specific things, because I can give you another like more.
No, I mean, those are pretty good. Thinking about, just for, you've covered the people that are in the city, like, pray and then talk to your local church leaders, see what you can do. And then, go to the abortion mill if you're in the city, after doing that and staying with the brothers and sisters that are already there. But if you're in Western Kansas, which is where some of my followers, a number of them are from.
Or Southeast Kansas. I mean, one of our former leaders lives in the Southeast Kansas area, and they can't come. He's the kind of guy who will go. If he lived here, he'd be here all the time at the murder mills. But he lives Southeast Kansas. You just can't do that. So anyway, I would say, can I mention one specific?
Sure.
Here?
Yeah.
So something that you can do from where you are, if you have a phone or internet access, you can find out who is your, has to do specifically with the bills and legislation, who is your state rep and who is your senator. State, I'm talking about state first. Do state first. Who are they? And then correspond. Phone call, email. Hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm one of your constituents. I'm concerned about my neighbors being murdered by their parents in the womb, and I'm urging you to do what God says for you to do in your capacity and press for a law to be made to outlaw murder for everyone. And then you deal with the response. But you can do that on your phone, email. If you're a handwritten or type and print and mail, do it. But that's something you can do from where you live. And I think just people, I don't know, I get the feeling, it's my feeling, that many of the people in our state are not politically active normally, but we do have responsibility to do that when we're able. So that would be
that's good.
Pray, church, and then talking to them, and there's another one. Is you can figure out where the people go where you live. If you have a place where people congregate, and you can do, if any of you have seen them, maybe you've seen Mac's pictures of him, you can go where people are and have a sign or try to talk to people and bring the discussion, facilitate the discussion. Hey, did you guys know? Did you know this is happening? We got to do something. So then you just move it out. It's like Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the world. It's that kind of idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. No, that's good. That's all good. I mean, man, I think we've covered everything pretty broadly. So unless you got any parting thoughts, Clifton.
Yeah, I was thinking about, I started hitting on it with the praying in secret, is that in all of this, no matter what, basically no matter what you're doing, but even specifically when you start doing what God says to do in such a way that you bring the conflict occurs, is that you've got to maintain communion with Christ as a non-negotiable, or you will fall prey to many pitfalls, temptations like this. There's nobody out there doing anything. I'm the only one. I am Elijah. You get and then God has to go, well,
Yeah.
Actually, there's some other people actually. Or you can get discouraged and driven down into depression because of the evil you start to see face to face. So those are two types of the spectrum of pride and despair that you will be tempted with as you do this. So it's communion with God and communion with the saints. And be encouraged that if you do things God's way, He will reward eventually, and you're part of it. But it's all got to be fixated on Christ, and you are an unprofitable servant doing only what you're supposed to do. And remember, it's been said by several famous Christians, something like this: one person with God Almighty is the majority. So if you have one of you, 3 of you, 300 of you, 3,000 of you, whether with few or with many, God is the majority. And that's encouraging. And that keeps you from sinking or becoming proud.
Sure.